welcome to another one of these discussions. My name is Sia, and today, to get us started off, we're going to answer a couple of questions, just fun questions. The first question we're asking is what music we've been listening to, and the second one is what our pet peeve is. So I'll go ahead first. The music I've been listening to is a lot of Arijit Singh for some reason since I've come back home, specifically the Heather album. And then my pet peeve is probably pop music. So that was a good segue. I'm now going to pass it off to Yes.
Great. The music that I've been listening to is, my name is Vyaas, and the music I've been listening to is Glass Animals, so which I had last listened to about a year and a half ago. So I just randomly came up on my playlist today. So it's a really good band. And my pet peeve is, I sometimes find it difficult to have conversations with people who keep interrupting me. So that's a pet peeve. And I try to catch myself, if I do that, because sometimes I get emotional and I catch myself as well. So that's a pet peeve that I try to avoid personally as well.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. My name is Akshay, and the songs I'm recently listening to are Spanish songs like Telefono by Aitana or some other Suarez songs. It's because I've been learning Spanish, so that's why I'm listening to Spanish songs now. And then my pet peeve is sometimes people are a bit too fancy to live their life, and then they tell you not to be fancy as well. And then I'm like, man, just live your life. So yeah, that's one of my pet peeves. Okay, cool. Now that we have done some introductions, we can go into the actual topic, which is humiliation. So let's get to know what pre-existing knowledge we have on this topic. So what does humiliation mean? And is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I can go first.
Yep.
So humiliation to me typically means a feeling that is followed by shame that feels irredeemable, and shame that is very public. So shame that is witnessed by other people. Anything that you feel shameful about that other people have also seen, and something that you feel is something that you can't recover from. I think that's when you feel humiliation. To answer your question about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I think all feelings, some are uncomfortable, but all of them are useful. So even from humiliation, it's one of the worst feelings, probably because it also makes us feel ostracized, since it has that component of other people witnessing it. But it still somehow gives us important information about what we value, who we value, whose opinions we value, or if we're valuing them too much, and it's something that we shouldn't be feeling humiliated about. So I don't know if it's a bad emotion. It's definitely an uncomfortable one. So that's what I've got. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great start. I really like the point about it being associated with the public spaces. So humiliation is generally, I feel, public spaces, in the sense that there's more than two people. The person who is talking to the person who feels humiliated, and then one or more people. So that's ideally how I look at it. And when it comes to the shame part, I have a slightly different take on it. So what I mean by that is, I was reading up examples, and I was kind of confused as well, where shame ends and humiliation starts, or where they overlap. So let me give you an example. So let's say a friend who did really bad on a quiz, or a student in your class who did really bad on the quiz, and after the teacher gives him, his grade, hey, one of his friends, he says, uh, in front of other people, so he says, look at this guy's grade. He's so stupid and he can't study, and he's a loser. right? So this is a generic statement, and this statement can take two different paths. So the first one, where the kid tells himself that I am a loser and I'm so stupid, and that's a blanket, there's a period at the end of that. So he just says he's a loser and he accepts that, and then that's shame, right? But where humiliation differs, what I feel is where he says that's not okay. What he said is not okay. I'm not stupid, and I don't deserve to hear what he said. Like, I don't deserve to hear anyone talk to me like that. So that's humiliation. So humiliation and shame could be tied. He could very well be humiliated and be ashamed. But there may be cases where what's shaming for me might be humiliation for you, and it might not have the shame part attached to it. So it's slightly interlinked. So that's where I see the difference. See, what do you think, or Akshay?
No, I think that's a very important nuance, because you could, I see what you mean by, you could definitely feel even humiliated by something that someone else does, but you're not necessarily ashamed of it because it's not about you, but you could still feel humiliation. So I think that's a very important nuance. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, you guys are bringing important points. I actually see it a bit differently, because humiliation is like just something going against your honor, where you basically you're put down. But then in a similar example, let's say the guy says something stupid, and then you correct them. But then if you don't do it publicly, like if you just correct them, they still feel shame that they said something wrong. But then if you say, hey, you said a stupid thing because you're an idiot, but then that would be humiliation. And that's where I draw the line. So it's interesting where where the fact that different people draw lines at different places. So what does humiliation do to a person?
Vyaas, do you want to do this one first? Or?
Yeah, sure, I
Yeah,
can go. I mean, what does humiliation do to a person? So when I first saw the question, I immediately thought of one instance where in my 11th grade, so we have this, we used to do maintain lab notebooks for physics, and at one, so I was, so my professor, my teacher was in a bad mood that day. So he, I was probably like 20th on the list. So there were 19 other people whose notebooks he was correcting right in front of us. And he was picking off mistakes right as he was correcting all their notebooks. So, wrong headings, wrong format, wrong outline, incomplete diagrams. So he's picking things off one by one. And I was the 20th notebook. It was almost as if I was the camel that was the straw that broke the camel's back, where instead of drawing a table with my pencil, I had drawn it with a pen, and that really pissed him off. Like, that was like the moment where he broke off, and he just threw the notebook on my face, like in front of 30 people in the lab. So so I was at like 10 feet distance, and it came flying right at me, and I couldn't move. So that was humiliation. Like, I didn't take it too personally. I know that I didn't deserve it, and I didn't feel ashamed about it. But humiliation can sometimes, I kind of held on to that moment for like the next 1 week or so, where I was a bit down, and when I'm not in class, I went back to that moment and revisited and seeing what happened, why did that happen. So but turns out he was just having a rough day. I could see that. I knew that he was going to snap at someone, and that someone was me. So humiliation can open you up. You can start thinking broadly and seeing where you can improve as a person. So that was like the first instance of me being humiliated in a real manner.
That's very interesting. You have sort of had a positive experience with this humiliation, because while humiliating part was like, of course, like not good, but then as you said, it opened you up. But then because if you look at the previous question, like whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, this is a segue to say that it can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how it affects you. Not really how you take it, how it affects you, because sometimes it's not really on you to see whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. So really, it's about how it affects you. Sia?
Yeah, I loved that you shared that example because it brings up another, it kind of ties into Akshay's point is that there's differences in how people perceive it. So for me, humiliation has typically, I'm somebody who experiments a lot and risks a lot typically. So I'm very used to embarrassing myself, but it doesn't feel like humiliation because, I'm taking on a risk and I'm consenting to putting myself out there. Humiliation typically doesn't involve that, and it's it's something that you're not expecting. So for me, humiliation and the difference between humiliation and embarrassment has been that humiliation is something that I took very personally, and it felt like something that occurred because of who I am as a person and not necessarily a skill that I have. So if I'm standing in front of a class and I start choking because I'm bad at giving a presentation, then that doesn't feel like it's humiliating. That just feels embarrassing. But if something's happening because someone's treated me badly, or as a result I've been inconvenienced and a lot of people know about it, and I don't really have a platform to talk about what my side was, then that feels humiliating to me. So I think what humiliation specifically, as I understand it, tends to do to people is reconsider their perception of self and reconsider whether people accept them if they have the same status quo in society, because we all tend to want to belong. So it's something that's going to make you reconsider, do I really fit in? Is what I've done going to change the way people perceive me? Is are they questioning my character? Are they questioning who I am as a person, or is this just about some skill I have that I can improve? So for me, humiliation is definitely something that you feel like is irredeemable. So you got to watch out for that. You got to, because embarrassment can escalate into that. Just something silly you do can escalate into that if you don't watch it and you don't take the time to figure out, okay, whose opinions am I putting stock in? Can I control this? Can I change it? If I can, what do I need to change? So that's where I'm coming from.
Very, very interesting points. And both of you, thanks for giving examples out of your life. So it was definitely insightful, and I think people would understand it better because of it. Therefore, is public shaming on social media wrong? And we already talked about why, like with humiliation, usually public. But then when it comes to social media, we all tend to become keyboard warriors because we're not seeing them in person, so we don't really see how it affects them, and we don't really know whether it affects them or not. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. So is public shaming on social media wrong?
I can go first. I think it is. I think it is. So it depends, right? If we're talking about public shaming as in cancel culture, I feel like a lot of people feel strongly about it because it takes away power, or it de-platforms people who shouldn't be using some reach that they already have. If it's millions or thousands of people and they're not using that responsibly, then I think it's very effective to call them out. But I've also noticed that that's trickled down into interactions that people just have with everyday people who have maybe not more than even 1,000 followers, and people are trying to cancel them because they've made one mistake in their past, and then what's on the internet stays on the internet, and people aren't necessarily, in my experience from what I've seen, they're not trying to educate people. They're trying to embarrass them almost, or they're trying to make a point or an example out of people. So that's been a slippery slope from what I've seen. I think it's okay, if somebody does something that you don't like, to call them out by sending them a text, privately. And if, nothing's happening, then still respectfully expressing your opinion. But I try to discourage public shaming that is, that's unnecessary. Vyas, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, so when I was thinking about this question, cancel culture came up in my mind, and you very rightly brought that point. So, yeah, when it comes to cancel culture, the one one aspect which I feel strongly about is in universities. So where there's comedians who refuse to go perform in universities, like comedians, I mean, of all people, they're the most chill in terms of the general public. They can take a joke, they can take a roast, and they are being called out for some joke that they did 10-15 years ago, and just extrapolating that joke into them being labeled as prejudiced and racist and sexist. So that's not a good thing, right? So once someone puts out a tweet from that college, that person is forever banned. Not banned, it just is, not literally, but they just refuse to perform, and that happens across the country and many other places. So I don't especially like that, because the one person I follow, I don't necessarily necessarily agree with him all the times, is Bill Maher. So he's this political talk show host slash comedian slash other things, and he was cancelled about 4 or 5 years ago from UC Berkeley. So there are universities that are deemed as you know as the ones who fight for democracy, free speech and all those things, but this goes against that. So the public shaming aspect is very strong, especially in social media. So even one tweet can again destroy 15-20 years of your reputation. So it's definitely avoidable, and there are cases where the person who is shaming can also face repercussions for putting that tweet out. So that might backfire on them, where there's people who start calling them out for doing this or digging up their past and saying so it becomes this cycle where once you put it out there, it's there forever. Like, you can't delete that.
He just made a point that made me start thinking about, when it's okay to call somebody out versus when it isn't. So from what I've seen, shaming also tends to happen about something that the other person can't control. So either how their body looks or their orientation or, where they're from or the things that they like. If it's somebody's views about something, or they're, preaching about something, or they're talking about some technical skill, I think it's okay to criticize them or ask questions or say, hey, I don't agree with this. I don't think that constitutes as shaming. But commenting on people's bodies or, putting them down, things that we say are ad hominem attacks, it's not about a skill or something that's separate from the person, it's about who the person is. I think that shaming is not even okay, even if you just text them. If you individually text them, it's still not okay. So I just wanted to make that distinction.
Yeah, you both bring up excellent points. First one, I'll go with Sia because it's a recent one. If you're going to attack someone, attack their views and not attack the person. Because of that, with attacking views, it's like intellectual discussion. We're attacking a person, you're just a bully there. And then with the cancel culture, with both of you have brought up, I personally do still think that it's sort of wrong to like cancel someone because of something that they said like long time back. But at the same time, it's not unnatural for this culture to have come because of the amount of times. For example, with celebrities, they people think that if they say it's the truth, like they're given the same level of credibility as scientists. So when they say something is wrong and then it goes against your views, sometimes it feels like a personal attack to them. And because of that, it's also very, very easy to lash out because of the technological prowess that and the technological development that has gone through in the past few decades. And that the ease in which we are able to shame someone has definitely played a role. And then, of course, by doing that, you hope that that sort of thing is unacceptable to others as well, because it's unacceptable to you. But why I say all these things, as I said at the start, I still think cancel culture is not always the best way to go about it. And this could just go on a long discussion if we just talk about cancel culture. So I'll just like stop here. So the next question is, if a person has gone through a humiliating incident, it can be in person or like on social media or anything like that. And then let's say they have this fear of humiliation now. How can they overcome this fear of humiliation?
Overcoming the fear of humiliation. So we're talking about, say, wide range of people, wide range of personalities, and if a person who is putting themselves out there, who talks more generally in public spaces, so it is reasonable to assume that that person has gone through humiliating incidents before, because they're putting themselves out there. So the more you talk, the more you're in the public space, the more your chances are of being humiliated. So those are people who have gone through those phases, and they have somehow managed to do that. So this question is trying to get to how did they do that. So there are some people who just take it light. When you're humiliated, what they're trying to say is you're putting so much power in that person's words, so in the person who's speaking, so you place so much power. So ideally, for personally speaking, the only people I place power on is my parents. So if they say something, and if that's something that I genuinely feel is wrong, then I feel a bit humiliated, but that's coming from place of love. So but when it happens with friends, I don't really give much heed to it, in the sense that I don't feel down, I don't go into a bad mood, or that's because I'm not giving them power, because I have this sense of self, I have this sense of what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. And if it's constructive feedback, then people are willing to listen. But if it's in the form of putting someone down, then that feedback is lost. So overcoming the fear, I think it's just uh, you know being more aware of what you want to be, or if you've gone through hardships in your life, that can strengthen you in overcoming humiliation. So you reach out to those moments where you faced hardships, like a personal loss in your family. So you draw energy from that and say, you know what, I've gone through all this, these words, they're not going to do anything. So I think that can help.
That was a very comprehensive answer. I really like the fact that like it's about whether, how much importance you give to those words, and then it's also about the fact that I mean sometimes things happen, and those things can be humiliating as well. It's just bits and parts of life. I don't think I said that right, but bits and pieces of life, and but it's about how we move forward with this, and with that it's all on you to sometime take the leap of faith and then hope that nothing bad will happen. I really like that. I like that part of your answer. Sia, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, that was beautiful. I love the idea of separating what the feedback is from how it was delivered, because then I tend to be, if somebody says something mean to me, I tend to get scared of not actually receiving the feedback. So for people like me, I think it's nice to kind of reckon with yourself and sit down and just do and then analysis of the situation. So this is what happened, this is what my contribution was. If they would have said whatever they said in the kindest way possible, is there something I can take away from it that I can actually improve on? Is it something I can control, or is it something that I can't? So separating that can help you improve in areas where you ought to improve in, and make sure you're not ignoring some kind of important feedback that you should be getting from people, but also not take the words too hard, like Vyaas said. But I think it's also helpful to just normalize that that's going to happen. It's part of being alive. It's going to happen. We're going to look a little bit stupid every so often. And so we're not obligated to carry the shame, and we're not obligated to carry the tough emotions. We can just sit down, we can feel them, we can let them pass, and we can take the lessons and we can move on. And also know that you're not uniquely awful if you get humiliated. I feel like a lot of us have felt that or will feel that at some point. So don't, I try not to feel like I'm the only one who's facing a bad emotion. So I think that helps get out of it too.
You make very good points. I want to add something like different to this because, like as I both said, like how to deal with it in the long term. So in a short term, like when you've just been humiliated, and then you feel dejected because there's been a stain on your honor, and then you're not able to really think logically, and so you're not really able to think that there is life where people would not think about it. And for that, I want to talk about. I think there's a spotlight. I'm forgetting the name, but there's a theory where because you feel like you're in a spotlight, you tend to remember more about the things that go wrong with you than others do, because everybody tend to think about themselves. And then because it happened to you, you probably give it a lot more thought than everybody else. And sometimes other people might normalize your incident, and then just move on with their life. Because it happened to you, because it's personal to you, it might be harder. And for that, sometimes you just have to take some time out of your life to maybe sort of distract yourself, where you don't have to think. Just maybe just like watch a TV show, read a book, or maybe just like hang out with other friends who weren't really part of this. So you get to see the normalcy in your life. Or you can, if you're ready to like talk about it, then just like talk about it with some of your close people, your trusted companions, and then talk to them why it bothers you. And sometimes you just have to vent, and then like once you vent, it all goes away. So whatever works with you, and it's different for different people. So I'm not going to say as one answer that works for everyone, but like find out what works for you and then do that. Do you guys have anything to add? Okay, I'll go to the next one.
That was very well
Oh,
put.
love. Yeah.
I was just going to say that. That was very well said.
How do you deal with feeling humiliation due to societal pressure? So this is kind of a humiliation that you're not like putting it on yourself because of an incident, but rather, let's say, because societal pressure, you have to marry by the age of 30. Then let's say you're 31, you're like, oh man, and then you feel like humiliated that you haven't married yet, or you don't have a job after college, and then everybody else has a job, but I don't have a job. Oh man, and then there are so many other things that society puts pressure on you, and then I do want to make the distinction that when I say society put pressure, it doesn't really matter whether the society actually puts the pressure, but it's whether the person thinks a society is putting pressure on these areas. And so, like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I can go. Wait, so I feel like at the start of the call we discussed, what kind of humiliation means. So when it comes to societal pressures, I don't know if it falls under humiliation, because I don't think it does, because it's more of it's more of something that happens in public setting, like in a physical space. So with this question, I feel like it's just people feeling bad about themselves. People. I don't know if it's humiliation is the right word. Like is guilt the right word? I don't know. It's not even guilt. Is there a word for it, or am I just seeing it differently? Sia?
No, I think
I'm using the.
Sorry, go ahead, Akshay.
Okay, I'm using the word humiliation because it is still like, while it didn't actually happen in public. It is still about the public opinion of yourself. I mean, the opinion that you have about what the public thinks of you, what the society thinks of you, and then whether and the thing is, like the reason why public shame is a humiliating thing is because you think that the public, the people in the public are going to judge you, and that's why it's humiliating. If nobody else was there, then it's not really humiliating. If nobody in the public is going to judge you for it, they all think it's okay, and you think that they're going to think it's okay too, then it wouldn't be a problem at all. But then over here, you still do think that the public, the people there are going to judge you, and that's why you have a problem with it. And that is why I picked this question and used the word humiliation.
That makes
Sia, you had something to say?
Yeah, I think Akshay was trying to get at like the public part of it, that aspect of humiliation, about thinking about, oh, what do people think of me? I think humiliation here can be tied in by asking the question, you can be humiliated because of certain things that have happened in your life and not just things that you've done. So you could show up at a wedding and then someone, a friend might just say to you on the side, oh, you're the only one who hasn't gotten married. And that could be humiliating, right? So it doesn't necessarily even have to involve, it could just involve both feelings of you feeling behind and also somebody else calling that out. So I think humiliation could be tied in that way if you want to, frame the question that way. When it's difficult for us to, as a generation, feel okay about who we are, because we have so many examples available of somebody who has one quality in common with us but has a completely different life, and then we just focus on that one quality and think, oh, that worked out for them, why didn't it work out for me? And while very conveniently ignoring the other factors. And I don't know if that was always the case for generations before us, because they didn't have this much information. Not everybody's career paths were available on LinkedIn. Not everyone's, timelines were available on Facebook. And so we tend to have so many examples of success. So for example, if I think I'm failing because I'm an international student, I could find 10 examples of international students who are succeeding. And then I'm going to conclude, oh, it's because it's me. It has nothing to do with me being an international student. And so if someone calls me out on that and I'm like, oh, how come you don't have a job? That's going to feel humiliating to me, because now I've convinced myself it's not because of some choice, and it's not because of something, that I've done. It's because of who I am. It's because of some character flaw. So I think the easiest way to avoid that is to recognize that you only see the highlights of people's lives, be it on social media or even your friends. Nobody is going to sit down in a talk and tell you every single bad thing that has happened to them. So just to keep that in perspective and recognize that maybe what you think is humiliating isn't. It's common, and you're, internally attributing it more than you need.
I do want to provide context that when Sia said as an international student, it's because from India, she went to United States to study in a US university called Purdue University. And that is, so because if she's from India and she studied in US, she is termed as an international student. Anyway, Vyas?
Yeah, that was a good answer, because internalizing that, leads to, negative, can have, bad consequences personally. So dealing with humiliation, I think this example, the question, this question is similar to the previous one, where you asked overcoming the fear of humiliation. So it ties into the fact that you developing a sense of self, and focusing on strengths, and looking at your weaknesses honestly as well. So that can help with feeling humiliated, and being grateful and thankful. So those things can help. They may not seem like they help, but in the long run, they can help. And the thing about humiliation is, it's some of these things. So some of the humiliating moments are just humiliating at that point. If you don't internalize it, maybe 5, 10, 15 years later, they might just be embarrassing moments that you just laugh with your friends. So because what's humiliating when you were in 5th grade is just a joke that you share with people. So there are some cases where humiliation just turns as, an embarrassing experience, like in the future as you move forward. So that's just an interesting thought.
it's good that you bring up the point that like sometimes the humiliation later, it might not be really a humiliating incident. It's just that at the moment, because you were just humiliated by the if some incident where somebody they called you out for one of the societal things, then it feels a bit bad, and you may not really feel that way once you've gone past it. So if it's with marriage, then once you're married, you won't really care about it, and if it's a job, once you have a job, you won't really care about it. But while I do say those things, there can be negative effects too, where you might be putting yourself down because of this one thing every single day, and then that could just lead to trauma because if you put yourself down every single day because of this, and then let's say if it's a job, then once you get the job, you would feel good, but then the next time you have to search for a job, that could still be you might have PTSD from it because you went through a traumatic incident here where you kept putting yourself down every single time. And similarly, with marriage, if uh, hopefully it doesn't happen, but like let's say it does go to divorce and then you have to marry someone again, then like would you be receptive to the fact that like marriage is like not a bad thing, it's just like happened that it's like it didn't go well for you, were you would you be okay with that? And those are things that they might not come easy to you because of these things. So it could affect people in different ways. It could be really small as well as like really big. The next question is, how is empathy and humiliation related, or is it not? You guys can say no. It does. What are you even talking about? So then I'll say why I think it's associated.
I think there's good connection there. Essentially, if I hear that somebody has been humiliated, using my own empathy, even if it's not the same exact circumstances, I can reduce it down to tapping into when I just felt humiliated, and not focus on those specific circumstances, and be able to connect with that person and make them feel supported by just saying, okay, I hear you. Yes, that feels bad. I'm ready to sit in this discomfort with you. If you need any perspective, I can offer it. It helps you connect with other people. And also, if I feel humiliated, using my own empathy, I can think about how other people might have felt that in different circumstances in their life that I wouldn't have felt humiliated in, but they would have. So it also helps normalize my own saying that that's something that none of us is immune from.
Yeah, I mean that brings out like two different dimensions. When you when you yourself uh, can connect with someone, you're more empathetic towards someone. How do you react to humiliation versus how after someone is humiliated, how do you sort of help that person process that event. So those are two very good scenarios. And so the point about people with people who are more empathetic, I feel like they might be uh, better at talking about it, the humiliating event. So maybe dealing with it is a different thing, or maybe just sharing that with another person, that can help. So maybe they are better at verbalizing that humiliating event to someone, and that sort of lightens the load. So but dealing with it, they might face the same things as someone who's less empathetic. So that's what I think.
Yes, both bring up good points. I want to take it a different route again. So with this, the person who has been humiliated, because they can exactly see where it's coming from because they were the ones who were humiliated. Sometimes they also tend to expect a certain level of comforting from others because like to them it's a pretty big thing because they were just humiliated, whereas to others they may not really see it as a humiliating thing, and sometimes you have to communicate to them. And then because you are able to empathize with yourself and then see how big it is, other people might not empathize in the same way. And as we discussed in one of the previous meetings with empathy, you can see you will be able to see the link up top, and where we talk about empathy gap. And with the empathy gap, when you feel humiliated, the way you think is very different. Whereas when you're thinking just like normally in your normal state where nothing bad has happened, the way you think would be very different. And because of that, it's important that uh, sometimes you have to voice out the need for you to get the help. And of course, I hope that you get the help once you voice it out. But then sometimes if you don't voice out, uh, people might not notice it. That is one thing I wanted to say. And then the second thing is how people deal with humiliating things. Sometimes just appreciating them on other things, and then actually even the 5 love languages, like whatever feels good for you, maybe like knowing that would help others to help you. So if you're in a relationship, or if it's with your family, your close friends, maybe talk to them about the 5 love languages and see which one you have. And then and those are all like just based on skills. So it's sometimes it could be uncomfortable with certain things, but it's not really a talent or anything. They're all skills that can be developed. So anyone who's close to you would be able to like train themselves to help you the way that you want to be helped. Okay. We've actually come to the last question. So, what are your closing thoughts? We have talked about we've gone over like a lot of things on humiliation. What do you guys think?
Closing thoughts. Think about any mentor, friend, family member, celebrity that there is. They have been humiliated at some point, even though it is probably one of the toughest feelings to feel. Please reach out so you don't feel like you're the only person who is going through something like that. Typically, the things that you might feel humiliated by, like, a very public breakup or anything else, I promise you, even if you can't find someone in real life that has gone through the exact thing, if you go on the internet, just Reddit, right? There are support groups, there are forums where people share stories about how they've been through things. I know in the past that's helped me if I couldn't find somebody to empathize with in a very specific situation that I was humiliated by. Just know you're not uniquely awful for feeling that, and reach out so you can get the support you need.
That's actually a very good point. Statistically, it's very hard for you to have been uniquely humiliated that you've like nobody else has ever have. And because of the technological development, we are sharing everything, and Reddit is one of the really good place to like find that out. So anything that has happened to you, while I'm not take nothing away from it, that just because it happened to others doesn't mean it's less worse, because like it could still be bad, and then like deal with it. But knowing that there are other people who have gone through these things and how they dealt with it hopefully helps you. Vyas?
Yeah, that's a good point. On closing thoughts, I really like the expression that Sia used, called, she said, a folly of life. So uh, that's something that I'll take away from this talk, because it's folly of life. It's called the phrase "folly of life" is there for a reason. So it's happened to other people, and you guys mentioned that brilliantly. Uh, so there's groups on Reddit for everything. So definitely, you know, definitely there's worse. Definitely there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of things that people can do to overcome those emotions, and overcoming those emotions is a good thing. The wallowing in those feelings maybe for a day or two, maybe you process and recover from that faster the next time. So it might take a day for you to get over it the first time. After that, maybe it's a quicker comeback, so you come back to that state much faster. So it takes time. It's kind of like learning a new skill. So even overcoming humiliation, it's a skill. So you might take a week the first time, then the next time it'll be faster. So by the time you get to adulthood or in your midlife stages, so you don't feel as bad. So that's my closing thought.
That's actually like a very good point. Because, for example, like with public speaking, a lot of people, first time they do it, they might make a lot of mistakes. However, when they have done it multiple times, they've done mistakes multiple times as well, and then they've sort of gotten used to being humiliated, and that tends to help them. Okay, like what can I do to not humiliate myself? At the same time, they also, while they're thinking that, they also know that okay, this is as worse as it can go, and then that sort of helps them. And so once you've been humiliated, while humiliation is always bad, take nothing away from it, but you tend to like get used to, okay, so this is where it is. This is what happens to me when I feel humiliated. You tend to understand yourself like really better once it has happened a few times, and you would also understand how to make yourself feel better once it happens. My closing thoughts are the fact that with humiliation, I just have two words, which is think twice. Think twice before humiliating someone. Think twice before taking it, internalizing it, whether it's a big thing or not. Think twice before judging someone for not comforting you, because they might just not think it's a humiliating thing. Maybe you have to ask for help. And think twice is actually just a good advice for like everything else as well. Like sometimes, but especially when it comes to humiliation, because it like as much as we do, it's a very natural emotion, but it's also a negative emotion. You hope that you always tend to hope that you never have to ever feel this, but as Sia and Vyaas have put, like it's a quality of life. It happens. So just think twice and hope it works out. That's all I have in this discussion. Thanks so much for watching this, and thanks so much for both Vyas and Sia for joining this call and talking to us. You guys have both brought insightful things, and this discussion has been good because of the perspectives that you both brought. Thanks so much for watching, and you guys have a wonderful day.
Thanks for watching. For more discussions, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Also, make sure to like and comment more topics that you'd like to see us discuss. We'll see you next time.